Combine. Ladies and gentlemen, the answers to those questions and more can be had right now in the Central Florida Behavioral Health Network WDA hotline. Learn more at cfbhn.org. My guy, Scott Reynolds, pewterreport.com. He's at the Combine in Indianapolis, and he joins me here. Scotty, how's it going up there, bud?
Tom, doing great. How are you, man?
Doing great. So have you been to St. Elmo's? What do they got there? Like the shrimp cocktail? Is that what they're known for up there?
Yes, they are. I don't partake because I've got a shellfish allergy, but it's fun to watch people burn the crap out of their mouths with the ridiculously hot horseradish sauce that looks rather mild, but boy, once you dip that shrimp in it and stick it in your mouth, I think it goes from St. Elmo's to like Saint Inferno. So it's pretty spicy.
I can't do the spicy stuff at all. I'll leave that to somebody else.
Me neither.
Well, the Buccaneers offseason is about to get really spicy, Scott. And you guys, by the way,
it is.
You guys are killing it. Pewterreport.com. You guys need to go there because they're updating the formal, informal interviews. Every prospect that the Buccaneers have talked to, either formally or informally, you can see the entire list on there. I saw the back and forth with Cassius Howell and Sonny Styles. You guys are doing just an incredible job up there. And those guys are working
Thank
out. Yeah, you got it, man. I give credit to where credit is due. So let's talk about that first because the D linemen and the linebackers are working out today. So which of these guys will the Buccaneers be watching very closely?
I think there's a lot of them. I mean, that's one of the things that really stood out to us. They've interviewed a ton of players here, but really you kind of lock in on the formal interviews. Those are typically for the guys that are going to be drafted with premium draft picks, first, second, third round. That's where you get these guys in front of Jason Licht. You get them in front of Todd Bowles, Rob McCartney, the position coaches, the coordinators are in there, right? So that's the more important interviews. And the Buccaneers had 21 formal interviews. They're allowed 45 total. But in those three position groups, inside linebacker, outside linebacker, which is edge rushers, and then defensive linemen, which are the defensive tackles, 21 formal interviews just from those three position groups. So that tells you they're putting an awful lot of emphasis with about half of those formal interviews going towards their front seven. And they certainly need to reload, rebuild, restock the front seven, find edge rushers, find inside linebackers, etc. Some of those inside linebackers they've talked with formally: Sonny Styles, C.J. Allen, Jacob Rodriguez, Jake Golday, Josiah Trotter, Kyle Lewis, Kendall Daniels, and Justin Jefferson. They might end up drafting 2 inside linebackers this year, TKras, because they only have 2 on the roster right now.
Yep.
You talk about the edge rushers: Cassius Howell, R. Mason Thomas, Zion Young, Gabe Akis, Romello Height, T.J. Parker, Malachi Lawrence, and the Dame Tucker. So there's a lot of inside and outside linebackers this team is looking at. And, with only 36 sacks and not enough plays, splash plays from the outside linebacker or inside linebacker units, that's where a lot of the focus is.
I think they need to double down, Scotty, at the inside linebacker spot and at the edge rusher spot. So, I mean, I know it's a lot to ask, but they need to seriously and aggressively attack those areas because that's their biggest weakness, and they can have the draft, free agency, and maybe the trade market in order to improve those areas. So let's talk about a guy like Sonny Styles because he's very impressive, a guy who used to be a safety, rangy linebacker, can cover, can blitz. He can do a lot of different things. He is an athletic specimen, but it seems like I think he's one of those guys that's really going to knock you dead once they start the workouts here and the 40 times and everything else. He may not be there at 15.
No, I don't think he's going to be. If he gets by Dallas at 12, I'd be shocked. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes ahead of Arvell Reese either. I mean, I truly think he's the better Ohio State linebacker prospect. I just do. Arvell Reese reminds me, or Vel Reese as he's being known as now. I think he's almost like Jalen Walker last year coming out of Georgia. He plays a little bit on the edge, plays a little bit stand-up linebacker, but kind of like a jack of all trades, but master of none. And I think that's kind of how Vel Reese is right now. Where Sonny Styles, he is an inside linebacker. He's a Mike. You know what he is. You know what he does. He does it very well. And, for all of the athleticism, for all of the size that he has, I think his best attribute, TKras, is his ability to just tackle. I mean, he didn't miss a single tackle last year until the Miami game. right? And he missed 2 in that game. So to go an entire season with literally only 2 missed tackles is just about unheard of. I can't remember the last time that a full-time inside linebacker has done that, if it's ever happened before. So he is a stack and shed guy. He takes on linemen, shoves them aside, and then just fills the gap, fills the hole, and makes the tackle. And then you mentioned he's got the range. He's got the safety background, so he has some coverage instincts. He's a player that had a really good career at Ohio State. I actually think his best football is ahead of him.
He is a dynamic prospect with a high upside. We're talking about Sonny Styles, and we're talking to Scott Reynolds. He's up in Indianapolis for the Combine, doing a great job covering it for PewterReport.com. He's with me here on The Drive. The NFL Scouting Combine, the D linemen, and the linebackers are going to be working out. In fact, I'm watching the 40-yard dash times, and Caleb Banks from Florida. What you want to talk about a specimen, Scotty? This guy's 6'6", 327. They measured his arms at 35 inches. He's about to run the 40. I'm really interested in seeing what that looks like, but he's a guy who could be a fast riser.
Yeah, I've kind of heard that they're not maybe as high on him as other teams might be. The motor runs a little hot and cold. There's some inconsistency there. He's going to go high, right? He has some freakish traits. But we've seen sometimes you take these defensive linemen, whether, like a Shamar Stewart last year, where, and this is a different story because Shamar Stewart was just kind of a turd. He didn't even want to play. He held out and all that. But sometimes when you take a guy on traits rather than production, you're betting on the upside. And if you bet wrong, you lose. And I think that if he has the right coach that can motivate him and get the most out of him on a down-in, down-out basis, I think Caleb Banks can be a player. But there were some other defensive tackles that they really like that they interviewed as well. And I will say they did have a formal interview with him. I mean, sometimes you have to just find out what makes the guy tick and do your due diligence. But Caden McDonald from Ohio State is a fast riser. He's a first-round pick. Lee Hunter from Texas Tech is an absolute force. He played 3 years at UCF, and it was part of that NIL super team that they put together at Texas Tech last year, and he is an absolute dynamo. I'll tell you, out of the Florida-based defensive tackles, I actually like Darrell Jackson out of Florida State better, and he also got a formal interview. So he is more of that classic nose tackle, just going to clog the middle, and you're not going to run in the A-gap against Darrell Jackson. With Vita Vea, already 31, entering a contract year, whether he returns or not after next year and gets a contract extension or not, he's closer to the end than he is the beginning of his career. And you need to find the future beyond Vita Vea. And you'd love to do that while Vita Vea is still on the team, so you have Vita who can mentor him and show him the ropes, right? So a good year to invest in a young nose tackle. Darrell Jackson might be the guy. The other two guys that they had formal interviews with along the defensive line, Xavier Harris, a monster, like 6'7", 300-plus pounds defensive tackle out of Ole Miss, and then Tyler Onyedem out of Texas A&M, more of like a Kalijah Cansey type, kind of undersized, 6'2", 6'3", 290-pound guy. But they have had some interviews with the defensive line for sure.
Scott Reynolds, PewterReport.com, with me here on The Drive, doing a great job of breaking down the combine and the defensive linemen and the linebackers and the formal interviews and the workouts taking place today with the D-line and the linebackers. We're getting word about Max Crosby, Scotty, that it's going to take like a king's ransom to get him 2 ones and maybe a player. I don't think that's something that Jason Licht might be doing, but I saw Tom Pelissero say just a few minutes ago that he expects the Raiders getting a lot of calls, and he expects Crosby to get traded in the next 7 to 10 days. Is that what you're hearing out there?
I don't know about the timetable, but I'm sure the Buccaneers, knowing the relationship between Jason Licht and John Spytek, and the fact that the last time Jason Licht traded for an alpha edge rusher, it was via trade. Granted, it didn't cost that much. It was a third rounder for Jason Pierre-Paul. Jason Pierre-Paul back in 2018 not only became the guy that stopped the double-digit sack drought, right? Because he had 12.5 sacks. Bucs hadn't had a single or a double-digit sacker since Simeon Rice, right back in I think 2005. So not only did JPP do that for the Buccaneers, he brought that alpha mentality that locker room was missing. and he helped bring an edge to the Bucs defense that, when you added Ndamukong Suh the next year in 2019 and you added Shaq Barrett, that became a very fearsome foursome because they drafted Vita Vea in 2018. So in just the span of 1 year from 2018 to 2019, Jason Licht switched that Gerald McCoy for Ndamukong Suh, made that trade for JPP, who brought the edge. Of course, Suh brought some of that edge too. Drafted Vita Vea and then had Shaq Barrett. So that's the type of transformative player that Max Crosby can be. He's not just going to bring, a guy that can get double-digit sacks. He's going to bring an edge, a missing piece to that Bucs defense, a killer instinct, a do-or-die mentality. And, this defense needs that. And whether they're going to find it in a draft pick, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a player out there that will do that. Typically, you don't see rookies come in unless they're Warren Sapp with that type of edge. But Max Crosby, man, he is the kind of guy that can just retool your locker room, transform your defense, and just give you what you're missing, which is juice, edge, intensity. I'd love to see it happen, but if it's going to cost 2 firsts and a player, that's going to be tough. I could see Jason Licht saying maybe this year's first round, because fine, you're going to draft an edge rusher anyway. So first round pick for Max Crosby, sure. You want a player? We'll give you Chris Godwin. We'll give you Antoine Winfield Jr. We'll clear a high salary guy off the books that helps our cap for the future. Maybe a second round pick next year, but I think giving up a first round pick, that would probably cause Jason Licht to pass out to literally have to give up 2 first round picks in back-to-back years.
Without question. Now, there's also a report that Kayvon Thibodeau is available via trade, and like Jason Pierre-Paul, he might be had for like a third-round pick, Scotty, not a second or a first. He's got 23.5 sacks. There's probably some concerns there in terms of character concerns, but he can play, only 25 years old, entering a contract year. Is he a guy that could be of interest to the Bucs?
Yeah, possibly. It depends on how much that draft pick compensation would be, and then also, like you said, doing the due diligence and trying to, kind of call on sources and find out, not just a player, but the person, right? And he's going to be entering a contract year. So if you're going to do that, it's going to come with, you're going to have to pay this guy as well.
Yeah.
They have Yaya Diaby that they got to have to pay probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $18 to $22 million a year in a multi-year deal next year. Granted, you'd still be inheriting a big contract if you traded for Max Crosby. So I think that they would have to be open to that scenario for sure. And I think having a younger guy with some speed off the edge, I wouldn't be opposed to it if the character box checks out and if the compensation is more around what Jason Pierre-Paul costs, which is a third-round pick. I think Jason Licht would feel better about doing that than 2 first-round picks. If it was a first-round pick and a player, I think Jason Licht would say, John Spytek, let's get this done right now. But the fact it's 2 first rounds, and we'll see. Maybe the compensation isn't that. Maybe this is the Raiders kind of putting out there to these NFL insiders what they want to get.
Right.
And then we'll see what teams actually want to pay for Crosby. Because, again, he's not 27 years old, right? He'll be 29. He's 28 right now. He's coming off knee surgery, right? So, it's not like this is a bulletproof situation where you're able to get that from Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is 3 years younger, right, than Max Crosby. So that's something to keep an eye on too.
100%. And I brought this up yesterday. What they ask for and what they get are two totally different things.
That's right.
And
Yep.
you can ask for what Micah Parsons got, but Crosby's a little older. He had the meniscus repair, which is going to take a couple of months. And the one thing that the Buccaneers have that some of these other teams might be rumored is their pick is 15, Scotty, not in the 20s like the Bears or the Ravens or anybody else that might be interested, or the Patriots. 15. That's got to be really attractive.
I think so. I think that helps their cause if they want to pursue this trade. And again, if it's going to be for 2 first-round picks, I just don't see Jason Licht doing it. If it's for a first-round pick, a player, and, something in 2027, second, third-round pick, then I think you have his attention.
Like a 3 that becomes a 2 if he gets double-digit sacks. I mean, there's several ways to work it.
Right.
Scott Reynolds, PewterReport.com. All right, let's get to Mike Evans, our favorite topic. A lot of listeners are suffering from Evans fatigue, but it is a very big story. You heard Derek Gilmore when you came on. So your thoughts after listening to that interview and hearing whatever's going on over at the scouting combine, I have actually joined you, Scotty. I am now in the 50-50 range with Mike.
Yeah, and after hearing Derek Gilmore, I'm probably a little further than you. I'm probably 60-40, 60 that he's not returning, 40 that he is. That comment that he made where that was just there wasn't anything prompting Derek Gilmore to say, hey, Mike wants everybody to know that the receivers on this team are really good and everything's going to be fine even if Mike leaves. Now, he didn't say that, but that's kind of how you have to interpret that. I mean, why else would he have said that, right? If Mike was coming back, I mean, Mike can say that, right, when he's signing that contract extension. It just seems to me that, and I thought there was two things that he said that stood out to me in your interview. He said, Mike wants to win. He wants a shot at another championship. That may or may not happen in Tampa, depending on how you view this team, right? The other thing he said is it's about his legacy, right? Now, we have to remember something. It's not just the fact that Mike Evans missed out on breaking Jerry Rice's record, right, with 12 straight 1,000-yard seasons. He also lost about, 700 yards or so, right? I mean, the flip side of this is, he didn't break the record, but he didn't get the 1,000 yards. He was 700 yards short of that. And why is that important? Because Mike only has a couple of years left, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three. We'll see. I think Mike Evans wants to leave this game as a top 10 wide receiver. Guess what? He's already a top 10 touchdown scorer at the wide receiver position, right? He's already in the top 10. There's no way he's going to be a top 10 receiver in terms of catches. He's just not a high volume guy. He never will be, right? That's fine. But in yardage, 2 more seasons with 1,000 yards, and Mike Evans will finish in the top 10. So when his career is over, he can say, I'm a top 10 receiver, not just a Hall of Famer. Hall of Fame, I deserve to be a first ballot guy. Not only did I set the record for 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons, only one to do it in my first 11 years in the league, which, oh, by the way, tied Jerry Rice for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. But I'm also a top 10 receiver. Mm-hmm. I'm top 10 in yards. I'm top 10 in touchdowns. And I think Mike Evans wants to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, not just a Hall of Famer, a first ballot guy. And this is a player, too, that really, when you look at Mike, he's never led the league in catches or yards. He's never been first team All-Pro, right? He's never had his name up there with the Justin Jeffersons or the Jerry Rices or the Calvin Johnsons. It's really been about the totality of his career, the career production. And I think that he wants to ensure that he gets enough targets to get enough yards to crack that top 10. And when you look here, you got Chris Godwin, you got Emeka Egbuka, you got Jalen McMillan, you got Tez Johnson. You got a lot of mouths to feed with that football if you're Baker Mayfield. If he goes to San Francisco, they're moving on from Brandon Ayuk. Who's the other receiver out there? It'd be Mike.
Right.
It's in Los Angeles with the Chargers. If they move on from Keenan Allen, who's Justin Herbert going to throw to? It's going to be Mike. Who's the top receiver up there in Buffalo? If he goes there with Josh Allen, it's going to be Mike. And I don't think that this is anything more than Mike saying, hey, if I want to play, I don't want to be a complimentary piece. I want to be a focal point. Well, I can still play. Well, I can still do it. Did you not see what I could do against the Falcons on Thursday night? I can still do that. I can do that every week as long as I get enough targets. But the problem is over the last 3 games, remember, he had 132 yards against the Falcons. Last 3 games of the season, he only had 96 yards in 3 games.
10 targets.
He just didn't get the targets.
Yep.
That's right. So I don't blame Mike. This is not Mike being a diva. This is not Mike being selfish. This is not Mike being greedy. This is Mike saying, hey, I just want to go somewhere where I can be a number 1 wide receiver, because guess what? I'm still a number 1 wide receiver. And you know what? I've shared the rock here in Tampa. I have been the team guy because I wanted to win a Super Bowl and all of this. But I just want to finish my career, and I have some goals. And listen, Mike Evans has said for a long time, he is chasing history. He wants a legacy. He wants to be one of the greatest receivers of all time, and he wants to be a Hall of Famer. He's already a Hall of Famer, but time is literally running out on his legacy. He only has a couple years to get inside that top 10, and Mike has not told me, hey, I want to be a top 10 receiver. But in talking to Mike enough about his quest for greatness, his chasing history, I think he does. And I think that could be what is driving this. And I think if Tampa Bay has a chance, it's Zach Robinson saying, hey, take a look at what Drake London did in Atlanta. And you're better than Drake London. But Drake London put up some big numbers. The only problem, TKras, is that you look at the receiver room in Atlanta, is not nearly as talented. It was Drake London by default. Here, Baker Mayfield, he's got a lot of really good receivers to throw to, and I think that's kind of what Derek Gilmore was hinting at. This is a pretty loaded wide receiver room, and I don't think Mike wants to get lost in the shuffle.
Well put. Finally, I'll get you out on this. We got about less than a minute left. Levante David, I asked Jason Licht about him. He said, hey, he's working out at the facility. So if you're thinking about retiring, why would Levante David be working out at the Advent Health Training Center? But what are you hearing about Levante?
I don't know. I can't. I don't have anything else to add other than apparently they want him back. I think Todd Bowles wants him back just as like a safety blanket, like a security blanket. Mm-hmm. I don't blame him if this is a make or break year for Todd. I don't know that would be in the Bucs' best interest. I know the knee was a problem last year. Maybe it's feeling better, but I just know at age 36 you're not going to get faster or healthier. And I love Levante. I just remember seeing Derek Brooks in his last year, and he wasn't the same. And Levante David was not the same last year. And there's no assurances that he's going to have a better season this year. He might have a worse season. And the Buccaneers have to really, really, really upgrade at inside linebacker. They got to get younger, more athletic, faster, and better.
Agreed.
And I think we're at the stage where I don't know if Levante David does that for the Buccaneers anymore. And I love Levante. I'm not throwing shade. I love him.
We all do.
But Father Time is undefeated in this game. He always will be.
100%. Scott Reynolds is up in Indianapolis at the Scouting Combine. PewterReport.com. They're doing a great job with Combine coverage. Check them out there. Scotty, keep up the great work. We'll talk to you later.
Appreciate it, Tom. Thank you.
You got it. Great stuff there out of Scott Reynolds at PewterReport.com here on The Drive. Well, now Scotty's 60-40 that Mike's leaving. The receiver comment was a telling comment, and that was unsolicited, by the way. That was just Derek Gilmore, the agent for Mike Evans, saying, oh, by the way, I wanted to let you know, Mike wanted me to let you know that receiver room, there's a lot of talent, like softening the blow, You guys will be fine when Mike is catching passes from Josh Allen or somebody else. 888-388-0957. Text at 82945. We'll come back. Your reaction. The defensive linemen right now are running